Welcome to the 4 Habits podcast, where we help you build relationships that thrive at home, at work, and in life. We're Dr. Andrea and John Taylor-Cummings, and every week we bring you actionable insights to create meaningful connections and lasting success. So let's dive in.
So today we're going to have that all-important conversation about surfacing what we're really feeling and thinking in the middle of conversations that might feel too difficult to bring them up. With us in the studio is our expert guide, Chuck Wisner, all the way from Boston. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, we're just looking forward to jumping into the conversation. But before we do, as our guests know, we always need to give our proper introduction. So John's going to share your bio with the audience.
My delight to do that. Okay, so Chuck Wisner has spent 3 decades as a trusted advisor, leadership coach, and teacher specializing in communication, human dynamics, and organizational learning. He has guided senior leaders and their teams in Fortune 200 companies, trained as a senior mediator with the mediation program at Harvard Law School, and later collaborated with MIT's Center for Organizational Learning. In his book, The Art of Conscious Conversations, Transforming How We Talk, Listen, and Interact, Chuck translates that experience into practical frameworks that help us notice the hidden assumptions, the stories, and the emotions that shape every dialogue. By spotlighting 4 conversation types and 4 clarifying questions, he equips leaders and everyday people alike to slow down, surface what matters, and build relationships that thrive on honesty, curiosity, and mutual respect. Chuck, you say most of us talk and listen on autopilot. I want to jump in though. What moment first woke you up to the hidden dialogue running through your life?
Well, I was trained as an architect in Boston and worked here for 25 years. And we had a problem in my firm with a partner in alcoholism. And we didn't know what to do. We were good friends, but when we grew to a larger firm of 30, 40 people, he was affecting our clients and our staff. So we hired in help, burned through a few consultants that didn't do much.
But a few dollars as well.
A few dollars as well. Luckily, we caught it early. And then we hired a woman, her name was Linda Reed. And she came in and worked with us for 2 or 3 months personally, and then as small groups, and then a whole group. And what she did struck a chord in me. I always had a philosophical, spiritual sort of background in my life, part of my growing up. And what she did was like, how did she do that? How did she know what questions to ask? How did she know how to help us have these conversations? And it really stuck with me. And I became really interested, and we became friends, and I learned a little bit about her background. And then over the course of 3 years, I studied the ontology of language, mediation, and other things. And it was in those studies that I realized how much I was stuck in the pattern of difficult or bad conversations. And so it was really that, I say, retooling of myself, that I had to do my own work in order to really get it and then apply it for other people.
And that's such a powerful, it's so great to be having this conversation now. On a macro scale, conflict is just escalating, getting worse and worse. But relationally, one-on-one, in the office, in the home, people connecting, but not talking honestly enough and not surfacing the things that really matter. And I still think we struggle to bring the idea of emotions into conversations. Help us talk through that. I always move away from that. Help us talk through that with the 4 types of conversations I think you mentioned we tend to have versus the questions that we really need to be asking or asking ourselves.
Yeah. Well, the emotions are one part of the equation of our conversations. We're always embedded in facts, which has gotten a little sloppy the last 10 years.
Mhm.
What a fact is, right? We have our emotional reactions to things, right? And then we have our opinions. And if we're sane, facts make sense. You and I can agree that this is a black pencil and this is my coffee cup and this is a podcast. We can agree on those facts. We all have our emotional reactions, but when we get to our opinions, that's when it gets very messy, because all of our opinions are based on beliefs and prejudices and experiences that we've had our whole life that we adopted through our families and our cultures, but we adopt them unconsciously. So to become more aware of what those are is when we have an opportunity to investigate and go, wait a minute, that particular judgment I have about why he's being such a jerk, or why the leader is not behaving the way I think he should behave, we have an opportunity to investigate that. And that's when we really do our own work. And then eventually we bring that into our conversations with other people. So the four types of conversations in the book are storytelling, collaboration, creativity, and commitment conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And in general, we love to tell our stories. We all love our stories. And they're a good thing until they're not. For example, I grew up with a grandfather who was a redneck in Pennsylvania. I don't know if you in England, you know what that term means, but
We do, yeah.
But explain
yeah,
it for the audience.
Exactly, please do, yeah.
yeah. It's sort of very conservative, right-wing prejudice. People that I'm not judging them because they don't know any better. They just are doing what they knew how to do or what they were taught.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he constantly told me, I had three older sisters. I was the younger son, and I had a brother later. But he told me when I cried, or when I didn't want to skin the deer, or when I didn't want to do something, he said I wasn't a big enough man.
Mm-hmm.
And as a little 5, 6, 7-year-old boy, he was an authority figure. I gave his words a lot of power. I adopted that story unconsciously, and I grew up believing that I wasn't a big enough man.
Wow.
And so stories are beautiful until they're not. And it wasn't until I was studying language and doing my own work that I was able to bust that story and realize, oh, wait a minute, that was his thoughts of what a man is. I have my own thoughts, and I can change that. So these stories and our ability to engage with other people collaboratively are totally rely on our ability to not clench our beliefs and our prejudices and even our positions, but to come to conversations with more of an open hand to reveal our thinking, to reveal our honest feelings. And that's when the conversations can really change.
Indeed, we both took a sharp intake, because you probably know when we talk about habit 3, ask, don't assume, it's all of that stuff that sits under there, the assumptions we come with, the beliefs we come with, the biases we come with. And quite often we can't separate our opinions from the facts because we think our opinions are the truth, and then you end up
That's right.
Well, cross purposes.
The way I like to phrase it is we go into this mindset that I believe something is important to me, so it must be important to you as well. Or if something's not important to me, well, it's not important to you either. And we have these opinions, and we take it as fact, when actually really they're just opinions. And that's where we can upset people very quickly.
That's right.
In talking about storytelling, what I heard first is the stories we tell others, but you're talking about the stories we tell ourselves.
That's right.
Which really form the opinion. What about the other 3? You mentioned, the creativity
and collaboration
and
commitment. Yeah. So the storytelling conversation is about ourselves. It's a very personal journey to go, what stories do I have about myself or the world that aren't serving me or aren't serving my relationships?
Yeah.
So that's very personal work. If we do that work, our ability to enter into a collaborative conversation, which is our the collaborative conversation should be a mutual learning conversation where I'm listening to you, you're listening to me. I'm open, you're open, open mind, open heart. But we don't enter that way. We've all been plenty of meetings or plenty of dysfunctional sort of relationships where everybody is coming into the meeting or the conversation with a closed fist.
Yeah.
Here's what I think.
Yeah.
My opinion is the truth. I'll defend it to death, and so we're coming like that. My work says, under every opinion and every judgment, there are 4 components. And if we open our hand, we share our thinking under our position. The trouble with that is it's hard work because it takes humility and it means being a bit vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because you have to say, I might not be right. I have an opinion. Here's how I'm thinking. I might be wrong. That is the spirit of a really good collaborative conversation.
And
I learn from you,
part.
you learn from me.
Yeah. That's
right.
The hard part because it takes a whole lot of kind of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and as you say, the humility and the willingness to shine the spotlight on somebody else if their idea is more in line with what truth is, And that's
Yes,
hard.
yeah.
And I'm
Yes,
guessing
it is.
call it what it is, because if you're not willing to adopt that approach, it's got to be arrogance, where you just think, this is my
That's
view,
right.
my opinion, and I'm right. It's
Yeah.
not a nice word. People don't like the label, but that is what it is, really.
Yeah, it's arrogance. So arrogance is a good opposite of humility, right? Because, and I believe that's a pattern. I love to call these the way we show up in conversation as patterns, because many of them we didn't adopt consciously. We adopted them again through our culture, our family, our education, and our experience. And so we have these patterns that we adopt. But if we can sort of separate and go, oh, that's an interesting pattern I have. I have a pattern of calling myself a little man because of my grandfather, but that I can break that pattern. That's not something I consciously did. So, yeah. So in these conversations, collaborative conversations, it is that art of opening up the hand and being willing to be proven wrong or to learn something. Right. If we do that well, we automatically slide into a creative conversation, because we've all had the experience in a meeting or in any kind of dialogue where people are really saying, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And let's take that apart a little bit. And we're doing that, and we're in that collaboration. And all of a sudden ideas start bubbling up. Like an idea goes, oh, I never thought of it that way, but we could do this instead of that. And that idea came out of that open space of the collaborative conversation. Right. So go ahead. Sorry. Did you have a question?
I was just going to say what's really powerful about even the 3 that you've covered so far, coming to the conversation with more open-mindedness, challenging the storytelling, and being open to somebody else's perspective is all that we've been striving for, using the words diversity and inclusion. It's about how do we learn, how do we rediscover the art of really connecting, having a conscious conversation together. Love it.
Right. Yeah.
I interrupted you. Go.
No, it's fine. And the creative conversation, there's that part of what happens with other people. There's also a part of the creative conversation about us re-engaging our right brain, re-engaging our creativity. And I like to think about that as we grow up, we forget how to wonder. We forget wonder what if, wonder what's possible. And so this conversation is really about giving yourself permission to think about possibilities, to think outside the box. And it's a little different. It's like brainstorming, but the people have patterns around brainstorming. Is someone says something, what about this? And the next person that jumps in is saying, no, that'll never work. We did it 2 years ago and it screwed everything up. So that the judgment slips in there like a flash. Yeah. And all of a sudden the open conversation is gone. So the creative conversation is really quite interesting. And it asks something of us individually, and it asks something of us in conversation with others. Now, those 3 are all openings, as you mentioned. We investigate our story, we open our hand, we have collaboration, we learn with other people, we have creative conversation, it's more open. But eventually, the commitment conversation is about action. We are in business to make decisions and to take action and get stuff done. And so that conversation sort of closes down to a point, says, okay, what are we going to do? Who's going to do what by when?
Mm-hmm.
And that conversation is how we coordinate action with other people. Meaning everything from who's going to do the dishes to who's coming to the meeting to who's making the decision about the strategy for the next 6 months. So the commitment conversation, we're in it day in and day out, but we tend to do it in a very sloppy way because we don't know the ABCs of how it works. We just say yes, sure, no problem. We're off with making a promise that, in fact, we probably didn't really understand what we were promising. And then broken promises create distrust.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this cycle of dysfunction that we get into because we tend not to understand that conversation. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because we're not clear on the ask in commitment at the commitment stage, or not clear in what we're promising? What?
Both. So let's say a boss, Jane, walks by Fred's desk, her assistant, and says, "Hey, can you get me some PowerPoints for the meeting Monday morning at 10 o'clock?" And Fred says, "Sure, no problem." He goes off, spends 10 hours over the weekend doing a PowerPoint presentation, and he gives it to her on Monday. She opens it on her computer, and it's not what she wanted. And she's disappointed. The hour's a meeting away. She has to redo the whole thing. She's mad. He's upset. Well, at that point, he might not even know. She just goes off and does her thing. But so in that case, both people are responsible.
Yeah.
So the leader made an off the cuff, drive by, right? Can you give me a PowerPoint? Didn't say who it's for, what she wants to accomplish, what the format is, what does good look like, some basic questions.
Basic detail, yeah.
And the basic details. And then Fred, because he wants to please the boss, he diverts to what I call the addiction to yes. We're addicted to yes because we want to please people and get, unfortunately, he says yes without asking his questions. Who do you want it for? What would look good, etc. And he runs off and does what he thinks is best. A total miscommunication that could be avoided. So it's both parties have a responsibility. Now, I would say a leader with the power and the authority should take responsibility to go, let's take 5 minutes to really make sure you understand what I need so that we can make a promise that you can fulfill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what good leadership looks like on so many levels, right?
That's right. It's just slowing down a little bit. Now, there's one more thing about the 4 conversations that's really interesting. We love our stories and we love the commitment conversation, which is the action conversation. Let's get to work and get the job done. The trouble is we miss the middle 2 conversations. They're the most important conversations for revealing new ideas, for learning from each other, from getting smart together instead of dumb together. And so I call that the conversational bypass. We go from storytelling to, okay, what are we going to do? And we don't take the time to investigate those 2. And I'm not saying you have to do an offsite for a day to do those. I'm saying take 15 minutes to say, let's explore all of our options. Let's explore the different perspectives in the room. What possibilities might we be missing?
Yeah.
So
otherwise you're assuming you're all on the same page when everybody has a totally different understanding of what you're working.
Well, that's what happened right there in the example you gave. Fred had his assumption as to what the presentation should look like. Yeah, I've got this. Let's go. Put it down on paper.
Yep. Let's go. Let's do it. Yeah, and then the authority thing comes in, where people in a meeting, the boss says, "Okay, what are we going to do?" And they say, "Let's do option A." People don't feel safe to speak up because there might be people in that room that say, "Well, wait a minute, I'm not sure about that. I have some concerns, and will that really get us the success that we want?" So the authority piece plays out in every conversation we have, whether it's with our kids, our spouse, our partner or our colleagues or our boss. We have to be aware of those power dynamics.
And, that's such an important point, because if people don't feel that it's safe to speak up, either it might be career limiting, they might feel if they make the wrong suggestion or it gets shut down, or the because of history, treatment in society, racism, discrimination, you're so busy protecting yourself in the space you're finally allowed to be in. Speaking up is just one step too far in feeling safe or feeling judged or wondering where that will go. There are so many different emotions that people can bring into the room. If it doesn't feel safe, it's not going to happen. So how would you, apart from pausing and asking that question, how would you encourage leaders to become far more, I don't want to use the word intuitive, but just far more tuned into what's going on in the room to make sure they don't do that communication bypass?
Yeah, that's a big question. Because there's emotional intelligence and there's social intelligence. Many leaders are never trained around leadership or communication. Right? So they're on autopilot, just sort of doing what they think is best. And many leaders are stuck in the story that they have to have the answer. Because they need to be the smartest one in the room. So, and that I call that being the knower versus the learner. Right. So I had one client. His name was, we'll call him John. And I was invited to help him and his team because he wasn't getting engagement with his team. He was he was a VP in a very great company, and he was doing a new division with some new vision and some new strategies. Wasn't getting engagement. So I said, well, let me just observe some of your meetings. And so we did that, and I shadowed him a bit. And what I discovered was he was really smart, really passionate, and a good guy, but he would have a meeting and he would stand up on a whiteboard or a flip chart and say, look this is what we have to figure this out. And then he would start drawing pictures and say, and I think this, and I think this, and maybe we should do la la. And he was very passionate. He would get red in the face. And then he would say to his team, what do you think? And he would get crickets. Right?
What am I allowed to think?
So we worked on that. He was totally, again, he had this pattern he was unconscious of. But when I could shine the mirror up for him or hold the mirror up for him, he was able to go, wow, I had no idea I was doing that. What do I do? And so to answer your question, what he needed to do was back off, put something on the table. We have a problem. We need to think through this, right? I want to hear from everyone here. What are the different perspectives in the room? What are the different ways we could solve this problem, or we could create a strategy? So they need to stop thinking they have to go first, and they often have to go last. And that's hard because they're not trained to do that. They're trained to say, what are we going to do? Let's make the decision and let's go.
So I have a broader question, or zooming out a little bit. If you have these four levers, should we call them, for effective conversations, the storytelling, collaboration, creativity, commitment. When you're working with leaders and helping them improve the conversations they're having, improve how they're getting across or coming across to people, is there an exercise they need to do first to see how good they are at each of these levers in general? Where do you begin? How do you say, okay, how do you get them from where they are to where they should be to have these kind of conversations?
So the main first step is awareness. So we all have patterns. Some patterns serve us well. They save us energy. Some patterns really don't serve us well and create chaos or dysfunction, like John did, right? So I generally do.
That's not this John, right? Just being clear for our audience.
That's right.
John in the example. This John has done that as well. Oh no, for sure.
Let's call him Jamie. So what I like to do is are they aware of the pain point? Like Jamie or John came to me and said, I get crickets with my team. They're not engaging with me. Well, that's a good sign. Some people come and say, I don't know what's going on. I just need help. I'm floundering as a leader. So we have to find what's really going on as an initial thing. Are people not engaging? Is he overbearing? Is he arrogant? Is he this or that? And then by observing and also doing 360 interviews, I can collect how their pattern is showing up and what the consequences are. And often the consequences, what people are missing. Say, oh, I realize that I'm loud and I'm passionate, but isn't that what I'm supposed to be as a passionate leader? But the consequence is not good, right? And then I can lead them through sort of the art of understanding their own pattern, and then help them understand the art of collaboration. Like, what does it mean to have a dance in a good collaborative conversation? Like productive advocacy, productive inquiry, not the old asking questions to prove someone wrong, or just constantly, advocating for your position. So there's an art there. So I try to show them the fundamentals, and then there's a practice. All this work is practice, because we're screwing around with neurons in our brain, and it takes time. There's no magic switch.
Yeah.
If I had clients that come to me and said, I never want to behave like Jamie did. I never want to behave this way again. Help me, give me the pill, or throw the switch. Help me throw the switch so I never do it again. And I said, well, if there was a magic switch, would you pay me $10,000 so that you would never do that again? And he'd say, I will. Well, there's no magic switch. So, I would be a rich man if there were. So it's this learning, adopting, awareness, and then practice. Are the steps to get there. Yeah. There's one other piece I want to add that sort of feeds into this question that you just had. For every conversation we're in and every judgment we have, I lay out in the book these 4 sort of quintessential questions that we can ask ourselves to deconstruct, to take apart, to understand our own position. Or if we're coming with a fist, the 4 questions help us open our hand and go, I do have a position, but here's my thinking under my position. And the 4 questions are not rocket science, but they're hard to practice for ourselves. The first one is, what do I desire? What do I want out of this situation? Do I want to fight? Do I want a resolution? Do I want them to think like me? And so desires are a lovely thing because they inspire us to do things, but they're also a trap, because often our desires don't line up with reality. I want the next promotion, but in fact, I deserve the next promotion, but in fact, I'm unaware that people around me don't think the same way.
Yeah.
So in that case, my ego and my desire can make me behave in a certain way that isn't aligned with reality.
Yeah.
The second question is, what are my concerns? And this is time-based. It's about, I don't want next week to look like this week. What are my concerns? That's another way of beginning in your hand. I hear what you're saying, and here's my concern about what your position is. I have a concern about what the consequences might be, or how this might play out in 2 months. That's one way of opening my hand. The third question is around authority and power. Who am I in conversation with? Is there a power dynamic? Can I speak the truth to this boss? Can I not speak the truth, or say my piece? So power dynamics are the most important thing, is to be aware of them and then to dance with them appropriately. Because there's a good way to push back on a boss for the sake of a better solution, or for the sake of the company.
Absolutely.
And then the last one is standards. And I love this one because we all have, for every judgment we have and every strong opinion we have, that's based on a standard, which are our values, our morals, what's good, bad, ugly, pretty, this boatload of things that I put under the umbrella of standards. But every judgment, if you investigate, he shouldn't behave that way, you have a standard that says bosses should behave this way, or teams shouldn't quarrel like that. You have a standard, right? So investigating our standards is really eye-opening, because most of the time we did not choose them consciously.
And I love the way that you articulate it as a standard, because quite often the judgment, for the most part, I'd like to think is coming from a good place, because people hold these values so deeply, and
Yes.
asking what's the standard that's driving the judgment can help them realize where values might be misaligned. And the argument is about pursuing different standards.
Right. Yeah. And it's not as scary as it sounds, because when we put it on the table, it becomes, knowledge that something we can talk about. We might go, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. Your standard is better than my standard. Right. So that might be a light bulb for me. And that's a very different conversation than just fighting about our position or fighting about our judgment.
That was one of the big
Again, that's the open hand. It's the open hand again.
That's one of the big lessons that we learned when we just started this other business. This time we had children, and we had different values that were clashing, and we didn't realize they were clashing until we learned to have a better conversation about it. So John is very much if there's a job to be done, let's get the job done and keep working at it till it's finished. I'm happy to finish the job, but a bigger value at the time, competing value for me, was I wanted to be a mum who was present with the children. And when it's bedtime and dinner time, I want to be able to park the work for a minute, deal with the value of being a very present and available and responsible mum, and then come back to the work. And so we would clash over availability, not realizing that it was two different standards of operation.
That's right. Yeah. John, you were going to add something?
I was just going to add to that. I mean, I think there are a lot of other people who think the way I do. And I call myself a natural workaholic. I'm a born workaholic. My personality type, I just want to get the job done, and I'll just keep going until the job is done. And to me, that's the gold standard. Anything less is being lazy, or it's just not, that's genuinely how my brain was wired, until I stop and think, actually, what's really important here. And it's to your point earlier, when you actually stop and you look at it and you say, well, is your standard better than my standard in this context? Absolutely it is, in terms of looking after the family and making sure the family are all safe and fed and looked after and so on. There's a balance that needs to be found here, to be struck. Otherwise, you could just get the job done. You get to the end of the day and you're like, yes, I conquered the job, got it done. But what's the impact on the family if you do that?
But the light bulb for us was recognizing that there were two different standards. And then we went, now I know what's going on. And it just breathes life into a conversation where you can actually have a conversation instead of fight to hold your position.
Well, just expand on that one just a little bit more. There's a story I just want to share very quickly. There is a practice of general practitioners, so doctors, medics who run a practice here in the UK. And we did an exercise with them, just understanding different personality types and so on. And one of the guys in the room was like me, natural workaholic. And he always believed that 100% was the gold standard. You don't go home, you don't finish your job until you finish the job, kind of a thing.
But
what that meant was he was always taking work home in the evenings, weekends, etc., trying to get the job done. And of course, you realize you never get to the end of the road. But actually, for him, the recalibration, the recognition of a new standard was saying, actually, 80% is the gold standard. That's the target you should be aiming for. Because he then realized the opportunity cost of the next 20% that he kept giving to the office was costing him his family, and it was costing him his health. And he thought, dear God, I never thought of it like that. So recognition of that new standard, actually 80% is the gold standard, not 100%, for him was a real eureka moment.
That's great, because when we have that moment of awareness, whatever triggers it, what's actually happening is we're separating from our position of our high standard, right? We're separating to look at it as a witness. And from that witnessing point of view, our ego can quiet down, or we can tell our ego to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
Right. But we're out here witnessing, and that's when we can go, oh, the 80-20 rule is a much better way to live. Right. And so versus just being attached to it, and our identity is that everything has to be 100%. Right.
So that's so powerful. So just to recap, so it's what's the desire, what's the concern, what's the power dynamics going on here, and what's the standard. And if we go in with our eyes wide open on that, we can have a better conversation in the moment.
That's right. And it works two ways. One, do it to myself. If I have a strong judgment, take a minute to go, can I reveal what my standards are, my concerns are, etc.? Can I open my hand? And then it's a great shortcut for asking great questions. To go, you meet someone that's like, they come with a fist, and you go, well, what are you concerned about? You ask that question in an honest way. You're starting to help them reveal their thinking. Well, here's my standard. How are you judging success? What's your standard look like? Again, we're sort of prying their fist open so they can reveal their thinking. So we do it to ourselves, and we can use it to ask great questions.
I can see why you call your book The Art of Conscious Conversations. It's not just about conversations, it's the conscious. It's actually thinking about it, thinking about what you're saying, thinking about how you're coming across, thinking about what the other person is saying, and doing all that in a conscious way. I'm slightly conscious of time here as we go, but how do people tell us? Can you tell us a bit more about the book? Is it just focused on these four, or what's the? Tell us just, if you were to capture the book in one sentence, what would that be? And then tell us how can people get the book?
Just buy
it.
Buy it, read it.
Well, buy
it, read it, and give me a review. Yeah.
There you go. Yep.
It's so one way to think about it is we are like fish in water. We're humans in conversation, not aware of the waters we're swimming in. The conversational waters, because we learn to converse and interact through our cultures and our families and our experience. And so we have these patterns that we're not fully aware of. There's that. And also, we don't really understand what I call the DNA of conversations, taking them apart to say, oh, this is how a storyteller conversation can be better. This is how collaboration really should work. This is how creativity emerges. And this is how we can make better decisions. So it's really understanding them at that DNA level that then we can never see. So I sort of take the innocence away. It's like we can't be innocent in conversation if we really understand them. Now we have a responsibility, right?
And I get that in asking, those 4 points that you mentioned to unpack where the judgment's coming from, the power, and desire, and concern, and so on. Do you find that it challenges the willingness to be vulnerable and to talk about what's really going on beneath the surface? How do you handle those moments where, for one reason or another, the other person might not even be as deeply aware that a value is being crossed? They just know they have a gut reaction to it. How do you maneuver those situations?
Well, there's a few options. One, you try your best to sincerely try to open their fist up by asking some questions. Some people will, if you model that, you're humble and you're being vulnerable and you say, here's what I'm thinking, I might be wrong. That tends to be a little attractive to some people. Sorry. But you're always going to run against people that are so afraid and so tight and so constricted and stuck with their ego and everything else that you can't make a move. And it's okay to walk away from those conversations. It's okay not to beat yourself over the head and or get into a battle.
Yeah.
And again, power, authority comes in because in a hierarchy, sometimes you can't walk away, or if you walk away, it means you know that you don't want to be with this organization anymore.
Yeah.
It's time. This isn't a good fit for me. I'm going to go find another job. And in the book, there's a whole section on our private conversations versus our public conversations.
Mm.
And that's another way for people to, if they have a strong judgment, it's another way for them to really, really more consciously be aware of all the monkeys in their mind that are in the background of their public conversations on a constant basis.
Mm.
It's really powerful, and especially now when we are so polarized in the way that we think, to just understand that we're bringing judgments to something that isn't necessarily a fact. It's our judgment. Where's that judgment coming from? And what's really
That's
going
right.
on in the dynamics.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
can you send copies of this book to all the world leaders? You know, let them
Yeah.
be reading this and be aware of how they're coming across here.
Well, you know, I would love to work with some politicians. All they need to do is sit down in a room and have better conversations. You know, they just don't do that. And this facts really matter. I mean, it's glue of society. It's glue of our cultures. And if we keep going down this road where facts can be abused, it's a dangerous path. So we have to reclaim facts. We have to reappreciate expertise and science, right? And then we have to sit down and have conversations. And oftentimes the conversation can begin with, what are two things we can agree on?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, what are the things that we disagree on? And we can lay a little bit of a foundation with that and some facts. Yeah.
That's why I think what you said about standards, you know, what are the values that are driving the judgments, that being able to bring that into the room or be more aware of it can become the thing that we agree on. You know, we might be looking at justice from two different ends of the spectrum, but we're still talking about justice, so we can agree we want to create justice.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah. Can we agree on the three? Well, your system of government parliamentary is different than ours, but can we agree on the basic foundation of how government should work, the checks and balances, and you know, like that? Yeah.
And that we really are after the good of the people. You know,
yes. Let's start there. Can we agree on that?
Yeah. I was going to say there's so much applicable here, clearly in the workplace, clearly in politics and in government we're just talking about now. Have you, in your work experience, done any work with people in their home lives, applying some of these conversations to life at home? Any thoughts on that, or any, I don't know, examples you can share in that space? I'm just conscious a lot of the listeners here in the audience will be, yes, they're out there in the workforce, etc., but everybody's got conversations to have back home.
Yeah.
There?
I have had multiple experiences with executives that when not everybody's going to read my book and want to dive in, because it's work. It's not an easy read. Let's say that it's not an easy, magic switch. It's like, it takes a little bit of work, but the payoff is huge. But I've had multiple executives, when they learned about collaboration and listening and opening their hand, they realized that they were doing the same patterns at home that they were doing at work. You know, overpowering their kids, shutting down the conversation, not listening to the kids, not acknowledging the kids' feelings. And when they realized that, then they were willing to do the work at home as well. I mean, the span is great. It doesn't work home. I mean, we were talking about standards. My wife loves to go to bed with a spick and span kitchen, you know, all dishes done, ready for the morning. I like to say she likes to go to bed as a maid, right? I like to go to bed as a prince. I'll pick it up in the morning. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep, right?
Or ideally, somebody else can pick it up in the morning.
Ideally, yeah. We always say Fifi is going to come any minute now. But you know, we used to fight over this early we've been married 43 years, early in our marriage. Thank you. And now it's like, oh, wow. So whose standard wins tonight? You know, or I help a little, but then I say I'm going to bed and she finishes up. So instead of fighting over it and having our standards be a clash, it's like, oh, wow, we have different standards. Mine isn't right. Yours isn't wrong. It's just different. And let's dance with that. Let's have fun with that. We can laugh at each other.
Yeah, indeed. That was one of our big lessons as well. So certainly
Yeah,
the conversation to have together is it's that awareness, isn't it, of bringing it into the room and not just
that's
holding
right.
your position. That's the hard part. And what you say, it's right. It's a hard read because it's about the work we need to do in ourselves in order to turn up better.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and to get wiser, more emotionally intelligent, you have to do your own work
Yeah.
first.
Absolutely.
Indeed,
Yeah.
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah.
We're so on the same page with that.
Chuck, it's been a great pleasure. Great pleasure having you on the show. I'm sure the audience will have benefited so much. I think the key takeaway from this is we all need to do a bit more work on ourselves. So recommend it. Go out there, get the book. As Chuck says, read it. So get it, read it, and then write a review.
That's
Let,
right.
let
And
him hear the stuff. But the
yeah,
art of conscious
yeah,
conversations, transforming the way we talk, listen, and interact. Out there on Amazon and I guess all other places you can get books.
yeah, or ask at your favorite bookstore too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's out there. My website is chuckwisner.com. And you can, I think you scroll down a little teeny bit and you can put an email in. You can get a free PDF of the introduction.
Okay. All right. Well, we can put that in
Amazing.
the show notes as well.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Perfect.
right.
John always gets worried at this point in the conversation because he knows I'm going to go out and buy yet another book.
We got millions of books, but there you go.
Millions of books. Yeah. There is an audio version too, so they can
Well,
if people
that's
that
more
want
me.
to.
I love an audiobook. I can be in the garden doing stuff and just soaking it in.
I like
Exactly.
it.
Yeah,
Underlined.
that's great. Yeah,
Right.
that's right. Different standards.
Exactly.
There you go. There you go. Mine's right, she's wrong. No, doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Different standard. Different standard. Chuck, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for being with us, and to our audience around the world, we say thank you, and it's a wrap.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the 4 Habits podcast. Now, if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget, take our free relationship skills quiz at the4habits.com/skills quiz to start improving your relationships today. Hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time.